So this is the destination we've been talking about for years, and these are the guys doing it. There is no other space in the whole crypto world that is at such an inflection point as this. We're not talking about gradual growth here, but this is going to banana zone very soon. We have $35 billion worth of real-world tokenized assets in existence right now. Those are being held in 540,000 individual wallets. And even though those numbers are at all-time highs, we are merely scratching the surface on this topic. Don't ignore this. We are at the time right now where if you know the companies that are moving in this space and the cryptos that are operating in this space, the equities that are operating in this space, you can be involved in those projects and in those companies and have the highest likelihood of success. And for me, success is just making a buttload of money and then walking off into the sunset. I think when you break it down as well, it's probably the same for you. So on this show, we look at all the moves that are happening in the world of blockchain, moving from the old financial system into the new financial system. We figure out the cryptos and the companies that are operating in those transitions, and we add them to a portfolio that I've called the inevitable portfolio. And this is a record in the macro so far. Based on the news that we cover in this video, I've actually added 5 new assets in the portfolio. So we have a watch list, the pending list, and then the full portfolio. As we gather evidence and information about companies, we graduate them through the stages. And so we've added 5 assets here to the watch list, and I'm really excited about them. So as I alluded to earlier, there is a new all-time high for real-world tokenized assets. It reached $35 billion in tokenized assets, with 540,000 individual wallets holding those tokenized assets. When we're talking about tokenization and real-world tokenized assets, we're not talking about gradual growth here, but this is going to banana zone very soon. Like, we're going to see a massive inflection in tokenized assets. The banks are really adopting this stuff. They have all the justification to do so. It allows them to use stablecoins in the way that they want, tokenized deposits the way that they want, basically allowing banks, if they use the same tokenized deposits, to make transfers, make payments between them instantaneously without anyone in between. It's fully private. No one can see what's going on, and they can actually move the values. So this is basically a ticking time bomb for the moment when the whole system basically operates on tokenized rails. We're about to see that banana zone here. But with this piece of news, I find it very interesting because this news relates to all the other episodes that we've talked about and the other assets that we've talked about as well. So I've got some information for you regarding the portfolio, because tokenized assets getting into new all-time highs validates our conviction in cryptos like Ondo and TRAC and Chainlink and Ethereum and Quant even, because these are integral players in the world of tokenization. This is why we have them in our portfolio, because they fill very needed roles in that ecosystem that we clearly see as growing because it's in a new all-time high. Every asset that's in these portfolios is there for a reason, and it's as a result of a lot of research. In my mind as well, Chainlink remains the key oracle for the infrastructure. I don't see anyone else getting a word in edgeways here. Quant is obviously still playing that key interoperability role, and Ethereum still remains that default base layer for tokenization. No matter all the different businesses that come up or the different projects that come up in the crypto space, they're all coming back to Quant, Chainlink, and Ethereum. And even more so now, Ondo and TRAC as well, as they have been graduated now to the full portfolio. By the way, you can check the entire portfolio out in its full glory, live updated, using the link in the description. I've got a tool that you can use to actually view the whole thing. That's absolutely free, by the way. Now, I've also seen something really interesting happening in Latin America. I think it was actually in Brazil. Tether, the company behind USDT, made an investment in a company called Parfin. They're a tokenization platform in Brazil. And if you're an XRP holder, you might want to sit down a little bit for this, because we are analyzing the things that are actually happening without bias. Okay, there's no bias here. I love XRP personally, but when I look at the news and I look at the documents, I'm going at it from a completely neutral perspective and only being dictated by what is in the documentation. This partnership between Tether and Parfin is entirely there to figure out how to do settlement in Latin America using tokenized assets. But the thing is, they're going to be using USDT as the core settlement. So when you think about XRP being a conversion asset and doing that element of it, it wouldn't play a role as a result of this partnership. Obviously, you've got Tether involved. Tether want USDT to be that conversion layer. The reason they would go to Latin America is because Latin America operate with the dollar as the currency underneath their own. And so any countries within Latin America can transact together with a mutual understanding that the dollar is the favored currency, that is the common currency between all of them. And so working with USDT to make this happen makes complete sense. It does actually sideline any other asset that could potentially do that job, like XRP, in this case, in this region of the world. We'll see how over time, how successful this partnership is and how well it works. We've also seen loads of stories about the inevitable collapse of USDT as well. So that could play a role. We're not going to draw an immediate conclusion on this, but it is interesting how they're moving towards USDT in this way. It does show us that stablecoins, though, are outperforming traditional FX in these emerging countries. It also shows us that USDT is embedding themselves in this new private banking world. And as a result, we have added Parfin to our watch list. Now, Parfin is actually a private company, so you can't invest in it unless you get access to private equity. But we'll put it in there anyway, just in case we see any other companies tied to Parfin that would benefit from this whole thing that we can invest in. For example, if they partnered with another cryptocurrency, that would be an interesting cryptocurrency to add to the watch list too. But what this news does is confirms our conviction in Ondo. Again, a reason why it's moved up into the core portfolio. It also bolsters the whole idea of Quant as well. But when you're looking from a competitive perspective, you've got USDT. What's the other one that everyone talks about? USDC. So you know that USDC are going to be doing partnerships like this as well in competition with USDT. Another really interesting story is that a company called Animoca and Hang Feng have just launched a tokenized asset marketplace called Nuva. And that marketplace is going to host vaults for the institutional clients of Hang Feng. This is a real place where traditional finance and Web3 are coming together into this tokenized world. And this is all being done with a regulated fund manager in Hong Kong. And so what this shows us is that where tokenization was really in the world of like bonds, for example, tokenized bonds, we're now moving out of that into alternative assets and then creating funds in these tokenized environments as well. Hong Kong is obviously one of these key jurisdictions in the world that has regulated on-chain finance. And so Animoca has now been added to the watch list in the portfolio. Hang Feng, which the ticker is FOFO, is now added to the watch list as well. Additionally, I'm adding Nuva to the watch list as well because this marketplace for real-world assets looks really interesting. We might do a dive into that later. But this whole thing supports everything that I've talked about with the cryptocurrency TRAC, who provides data provenance. It points straight towards the use for Chainlink again, and again, TRAC, Link, Quant, Ondo. They're all in the grander portfolio because they are the actual pieces of the puzzle that are being put together to build this big picture. That's why I find this portfolio and this research so exciting, because we're like actually piecing this together. I hope you're finding it exciting as well. Next, we have a company called Securitize, which by the way is backed by BlackRock. We've actually had it in the pending portfolio for quite some time. It's a private company, so you can't actually invest in it yet. But Securitize have now deployed a massive amount of money into a company called Plume, which again is a real-world asset layer 2 blockchain. They've actually put tokenized private equity in there, and they have 280,000 investors in that community now. What this tells me is that real-world asset chains are now fully fledged in existence. Like, we're not talking about these things maybe happening at some point or like hypothesizing about it. It's actually happening. There is no other space in the whole crypto world that is at such an inflection point as this. As a result, I have added Plume again to the watch list, and all of this news reinforces my confidence in the likes of BlackRock, Coinbase, Chainlink, Ethereum, and Ondo. Now, in our fifth story, there's a company that's in our pending portfolio. That company you may have heard of is called HSBC. They've now launched tokenized deposits in the UAE and in the US. Yes, you heard me right, the US. These tokenized deposits are going to be settling money 24/7, all on a private blockchain. We talk about the difference in previous episodes between private blockchains and public blockchains. The banks and institutions want to operate almost entirely in the private space because they want to manage their own money. They want money to be moved privately as well. They don't want all that information shared. Whether you like it or not, that's just the way it is. And the key distinction here is that they're not defining these settlement assets as cryptos. They are regulated digital cash. And if they do this properly, which I'd imagine they will, these tokenized deposits will actually start to compete with stablecoins. And so you've got tokenized deposits, you've got stablecoins and CBDCs, and then XRP as part of that whole thing. Everybody's trying to get in where they fit in. Each one has a unique nuance to its offering. XRP has the nuance that, if you have two entities that want to trade with each other, but let's say they don't have the same deposit token, or they don't want to use the same stablecoin, or they don't trust the dollar, then XRP is just the perfect position for that. But on the flip side, if you're one bank and bank A is moving a tokenized deposit and bank B wants that specific type of tokenized deposit or works in that way, then they'll just do it themselves and settle it together. We have to understand this is an ecosystem. This is a segmented world of payments. XRP fits in specific locations, but so does these tokenized deposit tokens. So do stablecoins. And we're seeing this take place just in these news stories, right? You got in Brazil, they're thinking, oh, USDT. In Latin America, they're trusting USDT specifically, right? As they've gone into that partnership with Tether. Then you've got HSBC in the US and the UAE who are saying, oh, well, actually, we could do this with our own tokenized deposit tokens. And then you'll have the likes of Japan, for example, that XRP, like XRP is perfect for what we want. It is going to be a shared environment. So we can see that commercial banks are taking dead aim at stablecoins as a competitor. We can clearly see that HSBC sees programmable money as a strategic edge. As I mentioned earlier, HSBC has been upgraded into the pending portfolio now. It's one step away from the core portfolio. And again, all of this just pushes and confirms even more our confidence in the likes of Quant and Link and Ethereum. We've also seen that Robinhood, you may recognize the name Robinhood, it's an investment platform. They just launched tokenized equities on Arbitrum. So they basically launched the tokenized versions of 800 US stocks in Europe. They did that all built on Arbitrum. Phase 1 is kind of like this closed loop system, but phase 2 is where it gets really interesting because they're going to bring 24/7 trading to those assets on Robinhood. Phase 3 would then open this up to crypto wallets and everything as well. So this whole roadmap positions Robinhood really well, but even underlying, it adds Arbitrum to our list as well. So you will now find not only Robinhood, but also Arbitrum in our portfolio schema as well. We've added them both to the watch list. And where this is all heading, by the way, is that you could own Tesla or Apple stock and see it in your MetaMask wallet. So this is the destination we've been talking about for years. And these are the guys doing it. Robinhood, right? Robinhood is the one doing it. Pay massive attention to Robinhood right now. Again, this points towards Ethereum and Link specifically in this piece of news. But Robinhood has been added to the watch list. It's public as well, so you can be involved. If you want to see the entire portfolio together, you can click the link in the description where I've got a calculator tool that you can use with the whole portfolio there. Almost all of the cryptos and almost all of the stocks that we talk about in the inevitable portfolio can be bought on eToro. If there's any time to get an eToro account, it is right now, because in the next couple of weeks, eToro are actually going to put my inevitable portfolio onto their platform, publicly accessible to anyone in the world. So in one click, you could add the entire inevitable portfolio to your portfolio. It's going to be so cool. Now is the time to get the eToro account. I will talk about that nonstop when it actually happens because it fits so perfectly with what we're doing here. Right now, I'm in the process of reaching out to real people, real researchers who work at the Bank of International Settlements, the IMF, all of these massive entities to answer some massive questions that we've been building up in the research over the last couple of weeks. If we can get this information from the horse's mouth, we will be so well positioned to understand how this whole world is moving in terms of XRP specifically, and maybe even the price potential of XRP, the usage of XRP. We can really put that puzzle together if we can hear it from the horse's mouth. So I'm going to ask you in the audience, I'm sure somebody out there knows someone who works for the Bank of International Settlements, IMF, any one of these big entities that works in global finance. If you know of anyone I should make contact with, go to lewisjacksonventures.com and find the contact page. Fill out the form and let me know. That's all for this episode of The Macro. I'll see you in the next one.